for this. And yeah, we'll get started. So we'll first let our four panelists introduce themselves, starting with Michael.
Hello, everyone. My name is Michael too. I am a rising sophomore at Brown University studying applied math and computer science. And I graduated from Princess Anne High School in Virginia Beach.
Hi, my name is Rose Zhang. I'm a rising sophomore at UIUC. I'm studying computer science plus music, and I graduated from PAHS.
Hi, my name's Alan Chang. I'm a rising sophomore at UVA. I am studying biomedical engineering, and I also graduated from Princess Anne.
I'm Roming Shin. I'm a rising freshman at Princeton University. I am planning on studying either computer science or chemical engineering, and I graduated from Ocean Lakes High School.
Unfortunately, Alice wasn't able to make it today because she is on vacation, but she did make a recording, so I'm going to play that now.
Hello everyone, my name is Alice Fang and I will be attending MIT in the fall. A little background about myself, I'm from Yorktown, Virginia, and I went to both Tabb High School and the Governor's School for Science and Technology. Unfortunately, I'm currently traveling, so I cannot be here live, but I've pre-recorded my thoughts on some college app-related questions. So the question is, what will you be studying? So I'm not set yet. MIT doesn't require you to declare your major until the end of your first year, but it will probably be some type of engineering. When I applied, though, I applied as an aerospace engineering major for a couple of reasons. I think the biggest is that all of my extracurriculars, or all of my STEM extracurriculars, were centered around either engineering or space or aeronautics. And so the intersection of all of those is aerospace engineering. And then another reason is that if you apply with the same major to all the schools that you're applying to, then you can reuse those why major essays. So the essays where schools might ask you why you want to study what you want to study. And then that just means you have to write less essays, which is very nice.
Okay, so we'll start off with college essays and advice for rising seniors. So whoever wants to start can go. Michael, why don't you start?
All right. This is a very broad topic. Not quite sure where to start, but I would say for advice for seniors, right now the Common App has opened up. So I'd advise seniors to get started thinking about at least brainstorming some ideas for their Common App essay. The Common App essay, if you don't know already, is an approximately like 650 word essay that is done through Common App, and it'll be sent to all the colleges that you apply through Common App. And it's one of the larger essays that you'll submit through the college application process. So it's pretty important that you spend a lot of time on it. Really think about what are the most important things that you want to share with all your colleges, and start brainstorming. The prompts are already out in Common App, so start thinking about maybe what parts of your identity do you want to share? What are some challenges that you went through, and talk about how you overcame those challenges? Or maybe just some things that make you happy, that bring you joy in life, and explain why they do. And just through this essay, try to reveal as much about yourself as possible to the people who are reading your essays.
Something I'd add on for like seniors is that although a lot of the regular decisions they are due like around the January timeframe, I would definitely consider like starting early, because once it hits like winter break, your mind's most likely not going to be on writing college essays. you might be traveling or something else, or like unexpected events could occur. So I would definitely start early and have at least taken a look at Common App before school starts, just to see the overall format and like the general types of questions that colleges might ask you.
I would also recommend what a lot of my friends and I did was we made a spreadsheet where we would list all of our questions and just see what essay topics or questions line up. So you can just either edit a little bit or just completely reuse your essay so you don't have to write new ones over and over again to save time.
I would also advise not letting too many people read your essay. Just have a couple, maybe like 2 at most, because you still want to maintain your true authentic voice in your essays. So don't take everyone's suggestions into consideration. Just talk about what you want to talk about. Don't feel pressured to talk about a topic that someone is pressuring you to do.
Okay, so the next question is, how did you build your college list?
Oh, Maggie, I need to play. Wait, sorry, never mind.
We'll give you guys some time to think.
I can go first. I took mostly 3 factors. One, location. Is it close to home, or is it at least close to a relative or someone I can stay with over break? For instance, I go to UIUC. While it's kind of far from Virginia, my sister lives a few hours away, so it's really convenient for me to stay with her over break. I'd also look at rankings, not just university overall, but if you know you want a specific major, also look at the ranking of that major, and see what schools has good programs or very like specific details that you like that can serve to make your learning experience better.
I would also add that financial aid is also a huge consideration. And people will tell you that state schools will give you the most financial aid, but that is not all the time true. We should also look at some private schools. They also have very generous programs. And adding on to Rose, like she said, on the overall rankings, but looking at rankings for not just your major, but also for example, like housing, dining, location, things like.
Okay, so I'm going to play what Alice said.
Okay, so the question is, how did you build your college list? So I only ended up applying to 4 schools, which were MIT, UVA, Princeton, and Harvard. Initially, I was going to apply to a lot more, but I was fortunate enough to get to MIT early, so I cut a lot of schools after getting in. But how I built my initial list was by first doing a mix of safety, reaches, and targets. Not in that order, but it's good to have a couple safeties just because college apps is very competitive, targets as well, and then reaches. I think it's good to apply to a bunch because you never know what will happen. I know that there was one person that applied to like 20 schools, got rejected for most of them, but is going to Harvard, so you never know what will happen. But if you can't afford to, or if it takes too much time, it's not like required or anything. But a couple other factors is one, like obviously academic programs. A big reason to go to college is to get a good education. And so doing some research, you can look at rankings, which are a little bit finicky because ranking is subjective, but they can be useful for determining what schools have really good programs in what you're interested in. Another thing to look into is location. So this is like a preference thing. Like I personally wanted to go north because I wanted to escape some of the heat and humidity here in Virginia. So that's why a lot of the schools I was interested in were north, but to each their own. And then another thing you should look at is cost. The reason why I applied to Harvard and Princeton after getting into MIT is because those were the schools that when my parents did the net price calculators were going to give just as good or better aid than MIT. And I figured since college is so expensive and at this point I had not gotten my aid package from MIT, it was a good idea to apply to some other schools that would give me just as much or more aid than MIT. And then another thing is like what I call vibes. which is essentially how you think you fit with the school. And so, for me personally, one of the schools I was planning on applying to was Yale. The reason is, I mean, obviously it's a really good school, but when I visited Yale, which I recommend doing if you can, I really thought the tour was really interesting. Our tour guide was very charismatic. It was very evident that he loved the school. The school is very pretty as well. And so I really liked that. But when I visited UPenn, on the other hand, wasn't as big of a fan. I think in large part due to the fact that the tour guides didn't seem to want to be there, which is valid because, it's summer break and they could be doing other things. But at least for me personally, I don't think I fit with the school, so I was not planning on applying. But yeah.
I'd like to build off of that a little bit. She made a lot of really good points. I will say college rankings definitely are subjective. I looked into how I think it's US rankings or the US ranking page. They rank by the way they do things is they have a questionnaire and they give it out to college faculty and they rank whether they like their university or not, and then they nominate other universities that they think are good, which is very subjective. So I would definitely consider looking into things like faculty size of a department or how much yearly funding a department gets. I think those might be slightly better indicators, and also like class size. So if you want to look into specifics, that is recommended. And I also 100% agree with, do you think you'll enjoy your time? Do you think you'll be a good fit at the university? I had sort of a similar experience where the way I thought about things was through my interviews. I had an interview with Tsinghua University and an interview with UIUC, CS plus music faculty. The Tsinghua interview felt not really good. They were a little condescending. The vibes were just not really there. I didn't feel like I was of any, I feel like they didn't value me as much. I did get in, but I didn't really like the vibes. But when I had my interview with UIUC, I spoke directly with the faculty that teach the courses, and it just felt like a more welcoming environment. So I'd also put that into mind. Think about culture and will you like the people that you'll be studying and learning around.
Great. Okay, so the next question or category is early decision, early action. So what schools did you guys apply for? And I guess the results and stuff and the process.
Okay, I can go first. So, I applied to a couple of schools early, namely UVA and Brown University. So, what I applied Brown University early decision and UVA early action. So, just a brief overview of what early decision, early action kind of are. Early decision is a binding application process where if you are accepted by the school, you are required to go to that school by contract. Early action is a early round, but if you are accepted, you still have the choice till May 1st, just like the rest of your acceptances, to choose to go to that school or reject it. Now, when I applied to Brown, Brown was my number one choice, and I felt that if I got in, regardless of what round, I would definitely choose to go there. So I made the choice to apply early decision, knowing that it was binding. And I would definitely recommend, if you know there's like a school that's out and out your number one choice, that you take advantage of applying early, just to kind of get out the way. I in the early round I did get deferred, which means that my application was pushed to the regular round where they will review my application again. So they essentially got to see my application 2 times, and I was eventually accepted in the regular decision round. In terms of UVA, I got in my early round, and that essentially allowed me to get my decision earlier, so that I knew that I had one school already in my among my choices, and that just kind of gives you more comfort, I guess, knowing that you've gotten into one place and it's one of the places that you want to go to.
Yeah, I think Michael covered early decision and early action really well. One thing I would add, I didn't do it personally, but there's such a thing as early decision 1 and early decision 2. So if you don't get into your early decision 1 school, like they either defer you or they reject you, you can look for a different school to apply early decision 2 to. So you're basically it's basically the same as early decision, it's just one school already rejected you. And so you can just try again, the same process with a different school.
Kalani, you can play Alice's response.
All right. Okay, so the next question is, do you have any advice for early decision and early action? So MIT, which I applied to early action, has non-restrictive early action where you can apply to as many schools as you want, but that's one of the early action policies. There's another one, which is single choice or restrictive early action, which Princeton, Harvard, Stanford, Caltech, whatever, they all have this, where essentially you can apply to, that's the only private school you can apply to, and then you can apply to as many public schools as you want. And then there's some schools that have early decision, where if you apply, you have to go. So early action, you don't have to go. So when you're determining what kind of policy to do, I guess, or what schools to apply to early, I think the best thing you should do is determine what your quote unquote dream school is. So MIT actually wasn't my dream school in the sense that it wasn't like I woke up every day and I was like, I have to go to MIT. I have to go to MIT. I applied to MIT early because all my friends were applying early. And so I was like, I might as well do it as well. But once you've determined what like the dream school that you want to go to is, I would say do that early policy and then figure out what other schools on your college list you can apply to and apply to as many of those as possible. Just because if you can find out early, then it will save like a lot of stress on the back end. And it also forces you to have your essays and recommendations done, or at least drafts of those done, which is really helpful when you're applying regular because it's one less thing to worry about.
Okay, the next, wait a second. Yeah, okay, so the next question is application results and choosing colleges. So just what colleges you guys got into and why you chose one over the other.
I guess I can go first. Results wise, I got into UVA, I got into UIUC, I got waitlisted for Cornell, and then I got into Tsinghua. And I touched on this a little bit earlier. But for me, Tsinghua, in the end, it was more of a debate between Tsinghua and UIUC, just because their CS rankings were higher. UVA was also a really hard decision because the campus is really beautiful and tuition is also cheaper. I just I made a really silly mistake and I applied to Bachelor of Arts and Sciences of CS and not Bachelor of Science for CS. So I just no. So I was really looking for higher CS rankings for either UIUC or Tsinghua. But at the end, it was mostly just I wanted to stay in the US where I'd be at least a little bit closer than across the Atlantic Ocean from home. And I just didn't really like the way I was treated during the interview. It felt really unpersonal. I just didn't really enjoy it. And I don't think I was afraid I'd get the same type of vibe at Tsinghua. Although this, of course, is just a personal experience. But I really liked the major I got accepted into, which is CS plus music, which is a combination of both computer science and music, which felt like that suited me as a whole very well. And I was also given James Scholar designation, so a couple of benefits as an honor student at UAC. So that was basically my go-to.
I can go
Um,
next.
Oh, you can go.
Sorry. So for me, I only applied early action for everything. So I got into UVA, Virginia Tech, Purdue University, and Princeton, and then ultimately I chose Princeton because they had the best financial aid. So it was a no-brainer.
To kind of go off of that, I kind of had a similar experience with gracious financial aid. I got into Brown University, Georgia Tech, and UVA, all for CS. Now, Georgia Tech does have a slightly better CS ranking than Brown University, but one, the financial aid was a lot better, and two, just having the reputation of an Ivy League also appealed to me. So I went with Brown University. Mainly the financial aid.
So I ended up getting into UVA, VT, and VCU. And so for me, UVA was pretty much my goal all along because UVA actually has a dental, I guess it's a residency program on grounds. And what that allowed me is to basically, I can volunteer and shadow at this clinic and get essentially really crucial volunteer hours since I am a pre-dental student. And also UVA does have a pretty robust health system. It has like one of the better hospitals in the state. And we have this program at the school that lets you essentially apply and then volunteer at the hospital. And since there's like a wide variety of different, I guess, specialties that you can apply for, I was just like, I was, I guess, incentivized to try out more than one, I guess, form of medicine. And that's why I picked UVA.
Okay, so the next question is how many colleges did you apply to? What made you choose your current college? So as I said earlier, I applied to 4 schools, MIT, UVA, Harvard, Princeton. I got into 3 of them, UVA, MIT, Princeton, and then I got waitlisted at Harvard. And so I eliminated UVA from the 3 that I got into, in part because it was more expensive than MIT and Princeton, and then also because it was not as far north and I wanted to go north. Between MIT and Princeton, they're both obviously really good schools. And so I think the deciding factor for me personally was when I visited the schools for their admitted students days, MIT seemed to be a little bit more like student run, student centric, which I took as a sign that they trusted their students to be the best advocates for the school. Whereas Princeton's was a lot more focused on like the admissions staff are running everything, and there were also like, it was a little bit more parent focused, I felt, because MIT, you sort of did whatever you wanted. There were literally 600 to 700 events and you just went to whichever ones you wanted, whereas Princeton was shorter and there were also a lot of parents there. So they focused a lot on giving as much information as possible, which was helpful in learning more about the school. But in terms of what I talked about earlier, like the vibe, I think I enjoyed MIT's more, which is why I picked MIT.
Can I add on something? Okay, so one more good thing about Brown University, because not a lot of people know about Brown University. It's in Providence, Rhode Island, which is a great little town. And as far as the education goes, Brown University offers the open curriculum, which basically does not have means that you don't have a core curriculum. There's no core classes that you are required to take. Few asterisks, some minor requirements, but that's like you just need to do that barely to graduate. But the benefits of the open curriculum that you can choose courses from any department regardless of your major. Knowing that you do have to complete the requirements for your major, but you have the freedom to choose any classes that interest you. And for students that have tons of academic interests, really want to explore, or maybe aren't sure about what major they want to do and just want to come in and just take bunch of classes that really appealed to me. I wanted a more free academic experience. So that's one of the highlights of Brown University, and I wanted to share that to you guys.
I'd like to add one thing just in case as well. I'm not sure if anyone does want to apply to international schools or Tsinghua or Beida. But just because I had a not so great experience in my interviews and whatnot doesn't mean that you guys won't. I also did hear about some incentives. Is like international students get preferential treatment, as in they get the better dorms, and they'll be assigned like 1 or 2 students to like be their friend and like guide them around and just show them campus. So those were some good things I did hear about it.
Also, just a little question for like you guys, since you guys are already experienced a year in college, just how was your first year, and like how were the professors, students, just the overall vibe of the campus, I guess.
I can go first then. My first year was really great. For me, I just felt that it was mostly my major. I just really liked having a combination of CS and music. So I wasn't like 24/7 just grinding, coding, and I wasn't in the practice room all day. I had like a good combination of both, which really balanced my life out a bit. I'm also allowed to take free music lessons just for fun and elective. So I picked up the harp. I also did like a music collab, and my friend, he produced a song and we published it. And CS wise, I am going into the cybersecurity field. I want to do this year, I'm planning on joining their cybersecurity competition. And I also got my internship at my school. For my summer internship, I worked with Information Trust Institute, where I designed a course for log analysis. And I just feel like my school has a lot of really, like, we just have so many clubs. Like there's like a balloon animal club where you just go and learn how to make balloon animals. And they just have there's a lot of just society and just fun things going around. And I also like that my campus is really skatable. I skateboard to class a lot, and our quad is really nice. One thing I like about not being in like a city school is we get our main quad, and it's a really big hangout place. Whenever the weather's nice, everyone just goes there and you can like buy things. People are doing fundraising and selling stuff there as well. So I think I had a really enjoyable first year. I made a lot of friends, so it's great.
Kind of similar to Rose, like UVA is also a pretty big school. And so we also have a lot of just clubs or organizations around grounds. And one thing I noticed in particular for UVA, I'm not sure for UC, but we get a lot of funding for our clubs, and there is a lot of support from the school administration. And so I really like that because essentially you get a lot of like preferential treatment for picking meeting rooms and stuff. And they really help with the whole communication towards like new members just through either school channels or through activities organized by the student engagements department at UVA. And just to answer the question in chat, comparing freshman year in college to high school years, I will say that there is a lot more like out of class time in college, and your schedule will often include several hours of time where in theory you're supposed to be doing homework, but I know a lot of students may have at first at least like procrastinated or did other things. And so I think time management is definitely a skill that you're going to need to learn fast once you transition from high school to freshman year in college.
I do agree with Alan. I'd also like to branch off that the library is okay. Everyone says go to study at the library, but it's actually so great. I really like Granger Library. We get a lot of funding for our engineering quad. The library specifically, the library was a whole gift from Granger himself. We have quiet floors and loud floors, and it's just a really good source. It's just really good to get in the zen and just be able to study, and everyone else around you is studying. It's great. I saw a question, food in the school. The food in my school is really good. We have pretty high rankings for food. my dining hall was newly renovated, and we have like five different vendors, and each they have like different types of food. Like there's the typical American food, Asian food, Italian food, allergen and halal friendly station, and salad bar, ice cream bar, breakfast bar. And even just off not dining hall wise, we have a lot of good like options. We have a street called Green Street, and it's literally just a street of just food and just vending. A Raising Cane's just opened on campus, which has been really nice. We have a lot of like nice restaurants, a lot of good cheap Asian places that you can eat at as well. So I'd say the food on my campus is really good. I love it.
Okay, so Alice actually answered 6 more questions that aren't included in this presentation. So panelists, feel free to answer the questions, but I'm going to start by just playing what Alice said.
So the next question is, did you volunteer in the community in your high school years? If so, which one did you enjoy the most, and which one do you feel has helped with your college application? So yeah, I did a decent amount of community service, I think. I volunteered at my church every week for about 6 years, and then I also did some tutoring in high school, and I volunteered at an elementary school. And I think that was important for my application, but not necessarily just because it was community service. And the reason why I say this is because I think a lot of people, when they apply to college, have some type of community service or community involvement. And I think while that's important to have, it's also really important how you frame that and tie that into your overall application. It's really helpful when you're writing essays to have examples or anecdotes that you can tie in to prove the theme or the message that you're talking about.
Oops, sorry.
So the next question is, did you volunteer? My overall application, because one of my big extracurriculars was renewable energy centric. And so I think community service is important to include in your application because it shows that you care and you have more than head knowledge, but it should be used in a way that highlights some particular value or passion that you have. That way it shows that you're not volunteering just because someone is telling you to do so or because you need service hours, but because there's some kind of passion or drive behind it.
Yeah, to kind of follow up on what Alice said, it doesn't matter. Like, there's no formula or a specific kind of volunteering that's gonna benefit like everyone's college application. It's really student specific. It matters what you're passionate about. Your volunteering should really reflect your interests, the issues that you care about, and the communities that really you associate yourself with. So it's all about your experience, how well you communicate that experience in your application, and usually that's by being more involved. So it doesn't really matter what kind of community service or extracurricular community involvement that you're involved in, but do something. That's what I'd recommend.
Okay, I'm gonna play the next recording.
Okay, so the question is, what extracurricular activities did you have? Do you feel they have contributed to your success in college applications? So my biggest extracurricular was this thing called Wind Team, where I would work with a team of people to build model wind turbines, and then we'd compete and whatnot. And so I think this extracurricular was particularly helpful because for a couple of reasons. So one is that I did it for 8 years, so there was a lot of time dedicated to it. And then another thing is it's about a topic that is pretty relevant. So climate change and energy, and it's also something that has like real world implications. And then there's also a offshore wind farm coming to Virginia Beach. So it's sort of community centric as well. And there were a lot of, like, we did a lot of outreach in the community at like conferences and whatnot. So I think that was helpful. And then another thing is because it was teamwork oriented, I was able to pull anecdotes in my essays about like working and doing collaboration, which I think is something colleges like to hear. Like for MIT in particular, I know that they're really big on teamwork. And so for a lot of my essays, my supplemental essays, I focused a lot on teamwork and working together to solve issues and whatnot. So that being said, I do know someone who also did Win Team who did not get into the same schools that I did. And I think part of the reason was because we framed the extracurricular slightly differently. And so, I think when you're talking about extracurriculars, it's good to mention some of the big ones in your essays as well, because that way you can sort of elaborate on what you've learned. Because in the activity section, you can talk about what you did. And, there's also the award section to prove that you've done something cool and whatnot. But when you're in your essays, you get to add that personal element on how it's impacted you or how your thinking has maybe been changed by experiences that you've had through your extracurriculars. And so if you focus on that, it portrays you as more of a person as opposed to a statistic or a number on a paper. And so I think that's something that's important to do with your extracurriculars. I also had a couple other ones. A lot of them were STEM focused, like honor societies and summer academies, but then I also did debate and orchestra as well. And I think it's good to have variety because it makes you a little bit less one-dimensional. But at the same time, you don't need to do like 20 different things and start a bunch of nonprofits and cure cancer and all that kind of stuff. It's just important to portray yourself as a person as opposed to just another applicant in a pool of applications.
You can play the next recording.
Okay. Okay, so the next question is, were you surprised by the admission result? If you had to do this all over again, is there anything you would do differently? So I was very surprised. To be honest, when I saw that I got into MIT, I didn't think it was real. Like, I thought it was a mistake. And I don't think I fully processed it to like a solid month later. So yeah. To answer the second part of that question, if I had to do something differently, the one thing that I would probably do differently is procrastinate a little bit less. I think in the beginning, I was decent about not procrastinating. Like, I started my Common App in September, and then I had most of my supplementals done for MIT a solid 2 weeks in advance. But then as time went on, I procrastinated a little bit more. So my Harvard application, which is the school I did not get into, is also the only school that I spent one day on. So maybe learn something from that and maybe don't do an entire application in one day. But yeah, that's probably what I would have changed.
And panelists, feel free to answer the questions if you guys have anything to add.
So I definitely second the part about procrastinating. I definitely would have liked to submit more of my applications in the early round than saving everything to sort of like late December, like winter breakish. It really, piles up. I guess you might like sort of get into a groove and then just like write all your essays in like a week and then just like be like, wow, that was amazing. But that's not the most efficient way of doing it. Definitely recommend. I definitely wish I had spread out my applications more evenly across September through December. I would definitely say that. And about surprising, yeah, I did not think I would get into Brown University, so I was very surprised. And I guess that surprising aspect still hasn't left me, even after 1 year of college, which is, yeah.
I think for me, if I were to do one thing differently, I would definitely consider a lot more out-of-state schools. because when I was applying, I kind of just got it in my head, this feeling that I wouldn't be able to get much aid from out of state schools. I'd be paying like large amounts of money to go anywhere out of state. So I kind of just stick to mostly in-state schools. But now that I really like look back at it, I realized that applying to some of these out-of-state schools, there's probably a good chance I'd get enough financial aid to where like I'd be paying similar to what I am paying right now at UVA. And that way I would have been able to look at a lot more schools with robust like health systems, or even schools with like dental schools attached, that would offer me a lot more volunteering opportunities. But UVA does have these opportunities. It's definitely better to have more out-of-state choices as well.
I'd also say don't
Next
procrastinate.
question.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, don't procrastinate. I mean, I got everything in. It was just by winter break, I was already burnt out from school and I was really stressed I was doing a lot of things last minute, which really wasn't that good. Yeah, don't procrastinate. Oh, also one thing I will add, slightly aside, you should also be applying for scholarships during this time. I always like to say this is the most amount of free money you will ever get. In the future, you have to actually work for your money. Here, you only have to write some essays. So apply to scholarships.
Did any of the colleges you applied to ask you to provide a video essay? So, no, the 4 schools I applied to did not. But I do know that for schools like Brown, which do have a video essay, there are like posted ones online for people that got in that you could look at. But I also know that at schools, like I think all the schools, most of the schools, they have like these optional supplements that you can have. So MIT, they have a maker's portfolio that you can submit, where you essentially talk about a project that you did or something you made. And then there's obviously like music supplementals and art supplementals that you can do as well. And I did not submit any of these supplementals, so I didn't submit the portfolio or any of the music makerspace ones. Mainly because I didn't think that I had any projects that were like outstanding enough to deserve their own separate application, I guess. And I was honestly kind of concerned about that. Like I was concerned that it said that it was optional, but it genuinely wasn't. But I didn't submit any and I did get in, so I think it is legitimately optional. So, keep that in mind.
Speaking about video submissions, I believe U Chicago has one, and then Tsinghua definitely has one. I think they were mostly on the lines of like introduce yourself or something like that. I also believe I did submit some music related things for Tsinghua. I did my guzheng submission, and that's very Chinese related, so I think that did help a bit. Also, I see a question in chat. What's your biggest challenge in your first year of college? For me, it was going to bed on time. I don't think I got enough sleep. That's something I definitely want to watch. Get more sleep. It's important.
I'll comment a little bit more on the Brown video portfolio. I think that's what they call it. They adopted this video portfolio. First of all, it's required. Okay, it's a required submission, and they adopted it as a substitute for interviews. So now Brown does not do interviews as part of the college application process. They just take your video portfolio, and what they ask you to do is just submit a 2-minute video that where you introduce yourself, kind of introduce your interests, your community, whatever you want to. It's really open ended. It's just about you though. Just kind of introduce yourself to the application committee, and I guess it kind of gives another dimension to your application. It's not simply just essays, stuff on paper. They actually get to see your face, hear the way you talk, just feel your personality, your charisma, and I think that's something cool. It adds something different to the application process that for people who are more creative in the media aspect that they can definitely take advantage of. But that being said, like the quality of your video is not anything that like they don't really care about the quality, they care about like the content of the video. So my video, like I've never really edited or created videos before, so I'd have to say my editing was pretty subpar. But I mean, I hopefully they liked it. I don't know if they liked it, but I got it. So
So the question is, what do you feel is most important for your success? Academic excellence, leadership experience, community involvement, college essay, or something else? So it's a little bit hard, but I think the most important would be probably community involvement. And the reasoning is because all of the other factors, with the exception of maybe academics, is dependent on community involvement. So like leadership experience, you only get leadership if you've like done something to make others trust you to be a leader, or maybe you've started this club, which is community involvement in and of itself. And then your college essays, it's really helpful to have something to pull from. And it doesn't have to be something grand. So like one of my MIT essays, one of the ones I really like actually is about working with other people to make thank you cards for a bus driver. It's pretty simple. It's not something grand, like anyone could sort of do that. But I think it was a good essay. I liked what I wrote in there. And so that right there is community involvement. Your extracurriculars is your community involvement. Recommendation letters, for example, your teachers, if you interact in class and you help other students out and you help your teacher out and whatnot, your teacher can write a good recommendation because they can talk about all these great things that you've done. But if you always sit in the back of the class and you never say anything and your teacher has no idea who you are, then it's going to be a very generic recommendation letter. The only thing that I think sort of is an exception to community involvement is maybe academic excellence, just because, you know, you can be really good at academics without sort of interacting with others. But the thing about like the really selective schools is that pretty much everyone that applies has a good GPA and good SAT scores, has taken a lot of advanced AP, honor, dual enrollment, whatnot classes. And so it's a little bit harder to stand out with academic excellence than it is to stand out with, you know, some of your extracurriculars and your essays and whatnot.
For me, I'd say it was different for different schools. For UVA, I think part of it was, you know, I had the solid academics, you know, all my grades, all my scores were to their to their standard. But I'd also say I had a lot of leadership experience in high school. I was treasurer of my class and I was president of Spanish Honor Society and vice president of TCS SEA. So I feel like that would be pretty good for UVA. I don't think my essay was my essay wasn't like, it was good, but it wasn't like, you know, mind-blowing. So I think those are probably what did it for UVA. For UIUC and Tsinghua, I definitely say it was part of my portfolio submission. For Tsinghua, I submitted a lot of like guzheng videos, dance, Chinese singing. So a lot of stuff that showed that I was very in tune with Chinese culture and I was also proficient in the language, stuff that could be related. And then for UIUC, it's 100%. I had a really good portfolio. CS Plus Music, I included some code that I made during high school. I think it was my IBCSIA. It was yeah, the code we made for class. Because it's a personal project, you make the entire thing. So it was really good that I was able to have a coding project already done. So that was easy submission. I also included like a few of our class homeworks that were slightly more relevant / advanced, and just all of my music things, all my performances. Turns out when I had my interview, the professor told me I can play more instruments than he can, which is really funny. So I'd say if you're able to submit a strong portfolio, definitely do it. I also saw a comment in chat, what clubs do you join in college? For CS wise, I definitely recommend any, like, you could either do a startup, or at my school there's some groups where like you can make a application for like a medical based thing, or you can honestly just make programs for anything. There are tons of clubs and startups. And the general ACM is the General Computer Club. It's really big, and they have subgroups called SIGs, where you can do anything. There's like SIG Pony is the cybersecurity SIG, SIG Music, where you do like, you make applications based around music. There's some theoretical things. They basically have subgroups for like every type of industry that uses coding. And then for one thing that I think is really cool that I'm not part of is they're like there are car clubs where you could do like, you can make an F1 car, you make like an engine that can make the car go really fast. My friend's in Eco Illini, which is, she makes a car that is really fuel efficient, and there's also like solar cars, and like you get to go in and drive your little car, and it's really cool to be able to work on a car. I'm not really good with hands-on things, but to those who are interested, I definitely recommend doing car clubs.
And just for the panelists, like, you guys can keep a lookout for the chat and save your answers to the end.
Okay, so the last question is, did you apply for any merit-based scholarships? Do you have any advice on this? So I didn't apply for any that were given out by colleges themselves, mainly because none of the schools I applied to had any merit-based scholarships that you could apply to. So that's one thing. But I did apply to some small, like, local scholarships, and I think those are good. I think some advice for that is be proactive. So do your research early. By early, I mean like December. January is a great time to start looking for scholarships, because a lot of them are due March, April, maybe into May, but mainly by April. And so the thing about those is, with the Common App, you can have your recommenders upload everything, and it's all digital, and they only have to do it once, whereas these, they have to do it like repetitively. So ask for those ahead of time so that you don't have to bother them, like send an email 24 hours before the thing is due, because you forgot you were applying to an extra scholarship that they haven't sent it to. And then also, some scholarships you have to mail stuff in. So that means you can't be working on your application at 11:50 p.m. because the post office closes at like 4:30 or whatever. So that's one thing. Another thing is, when you're looking for scholarships, sometimes, schools might be like, your school might tell you these are some scholarships you can apply to, and you might be able to find some, but do your own research. So all the ones I applied to, I found on my own. The reason is they were all aerospace specific ones. And the good thing about that is that aerospace is sort of niche enough to the point where there's not too many people applying for them. But because we have like NASA and whatnot, there's still a fair amount out there. And so if there's a decent amount out there, but not many people applying to them, then your likelihood of getting a scholarship goes up drastically. So yeah, that's some of the advice that I have for scholarships.
Yeah, to add on to that, I applied for a couple of merit scholarships, not too many. And I only applied to local scholarships because, like Alice said, those are definitely less competitive than those huge national ones, even though the rewards, they might have smaller amounts. You're more likely to get them. And if you just apply to a lot, then those amounts will accumulate and they can add up to pretty big numbers. And one piece of advice I would have for those is, a lot of these scholarship applications will ask you to write a couple essays, one or more, and you can definitely reuse your college application essays, just tweak them a little bit to fit the prompt that they give you, but don't feel the need to write completely new essays.
If there's nothing else to add for that question, then I'll read some questions in the chat for you guys to answer. So starting off with the very first one. It says, how's the freshman year in college different from your high school years? Take your time.
So I asked the question. I just want to clarify my question. I just want to know, your high school years is already really stressful. You study a lot. You don't sleep a lot, and your first year of college, you're away from your parents. You're probably homesick, but you also get distracted by all these clubs and activities. Um, did you feel like you were more relaxed, like not difficult at all for you to survive the first year? Or I guess I don't know exactly what I'm asking, but just how do you feel? What do you think is different?
For me, I would say one, it was just a lot more freedom. I controlled everything. I made my own schedule. I held myself accountable. And sometimes it can be hard to have the motivation or to be like, okay, I have to do my work now or I have to go to bed now. But I would also say, I feel like while it can get really stressful, two things that made college study-wise, academic-wise, a little bit better was one, when you're on break, specifically winter break and summer break, you don't have homework. Like high schools will give you homework over winter break and summer break, which I hated. I felt like I couldn't actually have a proper rest because I'd be worrying about that. And obviously, you're not going to do homework the first thing when you're on break, right? You want to rest a bit and then do it. So it's always they're bugging you. But in college, there isn't that. So over winter and summer, you can actually rest or do something productive, like get an internship or learn a new skill. So that's been really good. Yeah, I'd say that was one of the biggest things for me. One other thing I wanted to add was most colleges still have either like for finals week, the day before finals, they'll give you an entire day off. Some colleges even give you an entire week off, so you can just focus and just study on your finals and not have to go to classes or do other homework.
One thing I noticed in college, especially with like larger classes where there's a lot of students to only one professor. And so like some of my friends at the beginning of the year, they would attend class basically every day, just as they would in high school. But as the semester kind of like wore on, they would skip a few lessons here or there. And I think like being able to stay motivated to go to class when all of a sudden you're given your own like choice of going to class or not, like being able to stay motivated can be a little bit difficult at times, and it will take some adjusting to, especially for some of the classes that like may feel a bit boring to you, where like it's just a big 300-person lecture. It can be really hard to stay motivated at times.
Okay, so next question is, how about the food in your school? I know Rose already answered this question, but Michael or Alan?
Speaking from a smaller school's point of view, Brown only has 10,000 students total, 7,500 undergraduate, 7,500. So, but we still have 6 dining halls, which is a lot from what I hear from smaller schools, and they offer a good uh array of cuisine options. Pretty much you have a choice of anywhere from Mexican, Asian, Middle Eastern, Mediterranean, American, like every single night, pretty much, which is great. And in addition, we have a late night diner that's open solely from 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. every day, which is good for late night study sessions with your friends, to grab a quick snack before you go back to your dorm.
UVA's food is not good, and I'm pretty sure you'll hear this pretty often as you're applying. We're definitely not known for our food. You'll get bored of it if you go there, but we do have good options for you to like change things up around Charlottesville, which definitely helped me survive during my first year. I will say that also we do have like food trucks and everything around grounds. They're very convenient, so it is good to mix it up with those on say 1 or 2 days a week, because honestly, the food is very repetitive and sometimes honestly bland at UVA. So if you're going for food, not UVA.
So the next question is, what's the biggest challenge in your first year of college? I guess while you guys think about that question, we can we can go to the next question. So, what do you think was the most important contributor to your successful application?
I think for this one, like Alice said earlier, definitely what I say to a lot of students who are applying for college, your academic excellence gets your application on the table, and what really makes you stand out are your essays and how you write about your extracurricular or just yeah extracurricular thoughts and experiences. So yeah, the most important contributor for me, I felt like across the board in my applications were extracurricular involvements and how I thought about them mainly. Because yeah, a lot of people do school clubs, are involved maybe in the Chinese community or do lots of community service, but it's more about how do you think about it? What was your biggest takeaway? How did this experience really impact you and the way that you think and um what you went on to do with your new way of thinking? I think that's a very good way of approaching your essays and tying in your extracurricular involvements. So
I like to add on to that. When writing essays, make an attempt to be unique. And if you're writing about an activity or like an extracurricular that a lot of people participate in, make sure to write it in a way that you have a personal spin on it. Make it so it's more personal to you, so that it's not something that everyone's writing about.
be unique, but most importantly, be yourself.
So the next question is, what clubs do you join in college? You guys probably mentioned some already, but if there's anything else to add?
I would say that in addition to just the clubs associated with, I guess, your major and whatnot, I would definitely consider joining a club that's like kind of just out there, something that isn't necessarily tied into your major, just to give your brain a little break from what you would be doing in your classes every day. For example, I joined the club table tennis at UVA, mostly because I enjoy playing it a lot, but also to give myself something to like distract myself away from all my classes and to like be able to enjoy myself for at least a few hours every week and take away some of the stress.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. These more fun type or hobby type clubs, they don't have any barriers. You know, they welcome everyone, any and everyone, and you get a great opportunity to learn uh new sports, new skills, stuff like that. I joined a mahjong club uh at my school. So I played mahjong like almost every Saturday. Yeah. Um, in addition to clubs, there's also on the academic side, there's also research that you can consider doing. Uh, Schools love to make research more accessible to especially incoming students, first years, second years, people who are just starting to enter their majors and get to know more about what they're interested academically. and research is a really good way to accelerate that process. So professors are really open to you contacting them and asking about their research, or just asking them, hey, can I do research with you? And I'm interested in this. Can we discuss this? You know, even if it'll take maybe like a few cold emails with professors, but you'll find at least one professor out of maybe 3 or 4 that'll be willing to talk to you. And that's really nice. As well, the school may offer you research opportunities that you can apply to. I know Brown has an undergraduate. It's called Utra. Um, it it's really focused on giving opportunities to people who haven't done research before, and so it really allows you to try something out for the first time to see if you really like it. In this upcoming semester, I'm doing research in East Asian studies, researching the history of the Chinese language. So I am preparing a course with a professor that I took a class with last semester about the Chinese language and linguistics. So I'm really excited to do that. And that's something that I would not have gotten the opportunity to do without kind of this program that Brown has. So that's something that you can also do in college, which is really cool.
I just wanted to say the Mahjong Club is really cool. Also branching off of Alan, when looking for like a hobby style club, I do recommend doing something that can get you active, doing some physical activity, because it's really good to have some balance to your life. Being able to work out and just move can be really good for your mental health, and just keep you not burnt out during the school year. And again, Michael makes a really good point with research. Every school's going to have great research opportunities. Sometimes you can even get paid. I know for UAC, we have an entire research park where there's also independent companies there that you can get opportunities at. And one other thing I'd like to mention that's not exactly a club, but it's a really good idea to try to get a position as a CA, a course assistant, especially for like some of the more entry-level classes. It's good to put on your resume, and sometimes you can also get paid for it.
Okay, so had any of you published any academic papers at the time of application? Okay, next question. What study tips are effective in college? Or in high school, just in general?
Yeah, so I'd say use a calendar. I personally like to just make sure all my events are on the calendar as soon as I get them. Uh, Along the lines of time management, having some sort of a to-do tracker, keeping track of all the things that you need to get done. I personally just like to bullet it wherever I can. That's a little disorganized, but it works for me. I just have a document on my computer that I just add things that I need to do. But whatever works for you, it could be a planner, it could be literally in your calendar. Whatever works for you, but to-do lists and calendar, they're like must-haves for being just an effective student, and also just keeping track of all the things that you need to keep track of when you're in college and you're independent. You have to think for yourself.
I would definitely recommend Notion. It's an online planner that you use, and a lot of my friends and peers and upperclassmen, it's super popular. A lot of people use it. It's really helpful, great for organizing, and you can give like labels to everything. So you can be like, oh, this one's urgent, or this one's for a particular class. I'd also say definitely utilize friends and office hours. I definitely went to a lot of office hours, and for specific homeworks, professors will usually tell you if this is you can't collaborate or you can collaborate. And when you can, it's definitely helpful to be able to work with a group of friends and bounce ideas off of each other if you're stuck on anything, which can happen a lot when you're coding.
Just building on like the idea of studying with a group of friends, I found it really helpful to like rent out or like book a place in the library, just a little quiet room, and have maybe 3, 4 other friends with you, all studying like essentially the same exact thing. And that way you can bounce ideas off of each other and kind of like develop a deeper understanding of your content, especially when you're explaining to another student. You often realize that maybe there's a part of what you're trying to explain that you don't actually understand yourself. And then you both would then go research more, and that helps you and your friend develop a better understanding of whatever you were trying to study.
Okay, next question is, what advice would you give to high school students aiming to gain admission to top tier schools? And how did you approach the application process to stand out among thousands of applicants?
I feel like we've covered that pretty extensively, but just to kind of recap, like for me, the extracurricular experiences and what you think about your experiences really sets you apart, and they really come out through your essays. So it's really important to put a lot of time in your essays, to write about your thoughts, sort of present as much of yourself through your essays as possible so that they get to know you as a person rather than just an anonymous like applicant.
I'd also like to give some secondhand advice. So this isn't me specifically, but I have a friend who goes to MIT, and he worked in college consulting for a little bit, and this is what he told me regarding getting into really top tier like Ivy League, MIT, like the really good schools. Typically, you're either going to be a shoe-in or you're going to be one of the people trying to fight for the last few remaining open seats that they just have. Basically, if you're a shoe-in, that means you have a really big spike in something. Mostly for like tech schools, you're gonna either have like you won a math or science Olympiad, or you did extensive research in something. But for the top tier schools, if you're like if you know you're getting in, that means you definitely had done something really special. But that doesn't mean, even if you didn't, there still are going to be some open seats for the rest. That just means you have to be, a good student, able to handle. I think one really good way of describing is they'll see, are you able to handle their curriculum? Because their classes, from what I hear, is they move at a really fast pace, and some of the questions are really hard. You have to have a lot of critical thinking to be able to manage, like even just the homework questions. So a lot of it is like, they'll see like, do we think that you will be able to manage what we can give you?
I also want to note that I think colleges are looking for a really well-rounded student population, so they want to admit students who have varied interests. So it really, like, there's no guaranteed way to stand out in the college application process. It truly depends on who's applying that season, and what they have to offer. So I would just say, just pursue what you're passionate about, whether you think that'll get you into a good college or not, because at the end of the day, it really does not matter. You just want to do what you love to do. So whether that be pursuing research in college or like pursuing community service or like student government, whatever you want, in high school, I mean, just do what you're passionate about, and ultimately, I think you'll stand out like that.
Okay, so next up we have, can you share your approach to making friends and forming connections with classmates in a competitive and intellectually driven environment?
I think first and foremost is, most colleges, I'm pretty sure like almost all colleges require you to live in the dorms for the first year at least. Some require you live in them for 2 years. I definitely say making friends in your dorms is one of the best ways to get friends early on when you are kind of lost and just got to college, you don't know what to do. A lot of people during the first week of school, they'll like leave their door open to show that they're willing to like chat with anyone. Like honestly, just go around, walk around, see who has their door open, chat with them. If people are like, oh, let's go to lunch together, if they're forming groups, join them, and you can make a few friends that way. Other than that, like later on in the school year, definitely through classes. If you have some smaller size classes, it's easier to make a friend. Any clubs that you're in, stuff like that.
Okay, so next question is, what classes in high school helped you get to a better college or prepared you?
I guess I can say something for me. For CS specifically, it was kind of a no-brainer for me to do APCSA, IBCS, standard level, IBCS, higher level. And I'd say calculus was also AP Calc, IB Calc. Those were all useful because I got credit for them. I didn't have to take those classes. I would say AP Statistics because I have an upcoming statistics in CS course I have to take, but I haven't taken it yet, so I don't know. But I think AP Statistics is helpful. A lot of people say it is. I think this really just depends on your major, but I definitely say calculus, AP Calculus. If you can get a good score in AP Calc, for most schools, you will be able to get credit for that. So I would highly recommend.
Okay, next question is, what kind of friends do you make in college? Are they most ABC? I guess just the diversity of your friends.
I will say most of my friends are ABC. I guess I just going into a new environment, I kind of was more attracted to them because of, I guess, similar experiences and lots of topics that we can talk about together. But there's definitely lots of a very diverse population in college, and you'll meet uh, all different kinds of people who will definitely have shared interests with you, shared hobbies, shared experiences that you can definitely bond over. Personally, in the first year at Brown, freshmen are randomly assigned dorms, and I lived in a substance-free dorm where kind of everyone on my floor and the floor below me has are they agreed to not bring substances, drugs, alcohol into the dorm. So we kind of bonded a lot, spent a lot of time together because we didn't really go to parties, we didn't really go out drinking a lot. So we spent a lot of time playing games in the lounge, hanging out in the hallway, chatting and whatnot. So that got that I made a lot of friendships through that on my hall, and my hall was definitely not all ABC. So there's lots of ways to make new friends in college.
Totally agree with that. I also had a really diverse friend group. Of course, I feel like the people I hang out most with are ABC, but my roommate was she's international from Indonesia. I made a bunch of friends on my dorm, all different races, all very diverse. My music friends, they're actually internationals from China. And we like to go and eat food together a lot. But another thing adding on to like things to do, I feel like most dorm halls still hold events every now and then. And I say that's a really great way to make friends and just have fun. My dorm, we had like karaoke nights, we had slime making nights. And at the end of the school year, they also like brought out a bunch of like inflatables, and we had like a water thing and a bounce house and whatnot. So there's a lot of things you can do in just your dorm alone.
Okay, so next question is, did you try to avoid applying to the same college as your friends to reduce the competition? Okay. Next up we have, when you write your essays, should you be casual or formal? Should you write as if you are presenting in person?
I think writing casually is slightly better because you're able to present your unique writing style, present more, I guess, of your personality, show more of your personality through your writing. And that really helps the people who are reading your application to learn more about you as a person, aside from just only seeing your application. They get to know more about you.
I agree. I definitely wouldn't like write slang words or anything like that. But definitely don't write it as if you're writing a school paper because that's boring and you want to entertain the people reading your essay. So definitely have your own tone of voice.
And I saw that Michael answered this question in the chat, but maybe other people have other advice. So it says, if someone had to stand out through academic excellence alone, how would you recommend them to go about it? Assume that anything can happen theoretically. I guess they're just asking how could they tie their experiences into their essay if they participate in more academic stuff rather than, I guess, community service or stuff.
For that, I would definitely say, how has your academics made an impact? For instance, one of my friends, they were very academic, but they also did like a lot of research. They did some research on mold, and they were able to tie that in on how, you know, there was like mold in the building and it was affecting one of their teachers, and like they did research on it and now they know, okay, this is what's making my teacher sick, so get rid of this and my teacher will feel better. And so it made a positive impact on someone's life. So if you're able to tie in your academics or research or whatever you're doing into something good for the community, that's always a really great plus.
Yeah, to kind of follow up on what Rose said, like where did your academic interests, like how did they originate? Like how did you think about researching this topic? Or what started piquing your interest in this? Really showing academic curiosity, intellectual curiosity is one way of going about sharing your academic experiences in your essay.
And I also saw Michael answer this, but it's just asking what laptop, Windows, or Mac do you recommend to use in college? If
I
there's
mean,
other,
I was told that for engineers, Windows is better, but I really don't think it matters.
Yeah, both work. I personally switched to Mac because I feel like more of my professors use Mac, whether it be for CS or music editing software. But Windows works fine. I just prefer to do the same as the professors. So it honestly depends.
okay, and then this last question. Okay. I think this is a more personal question, so if you guys want to direct message them, that's also fine. But what would you do if you make friends and after about a month you connect with your friends, but you realize that the friends you have connected with wasn't exactly the kind of people you wanted to be around? How should you tell them that you didn't want to be friends with them anymore?
I would say don't tell them you don't want to be friends with them anymore, but just say you're busy. Respectfully be like, sorry, I'm busy on this day. I have homework. I have a different, I joined a new club because it's college. Everyone understands you're gonna be busy. You might have new obligations at any time of the year. So it's easier to just tell them you're busy and not see them because you're busy.
Yeah, within I guess the first few months, you'll meet lots of people. Uh, Colleges like to have orientation events that really force you to go out and mingle with people. So you'll meet a lot of people. And quickly you'll find who um you kind of want to spend more time with and who maybe you don't really want to associate with. But you don't really want to tell them. You kind of just gradually just phase out and are attracted to the people that you want to hang out with more. And that's just part of the natural progression of people, tons of people coming to a new environment and all being complete strangers to each other. Eventually people will find their groups, find their tribes, and go from there.
Well, that's all the questions in the chat. And yeah, thank you all the panelists and participants for coming to this event. It's our first event of this year. So yeah, so thank you for your support and thank you for your advice, panelists. And I think that's the end of this event. So
Maybe
have a good night.
before we close off, do you want to say a few words about Tidewater Chinese School, since this is organized by our Tidewater Chinese School?
Wait, I see it?
Yeah.
Okay. There was this
Here, I
slide,
can do it.
but
So
basically, yeah, you can
do
go.
it, yeah. So TCS is a nonprofit organization that teaches students about Chinese language and culture, and we also provide SAT math classes and some other enrichment classes. And you can visit our website tidewaterchineseschool.org to see more specific information about registration and like the price and like what's going on in the school.